Means for live, some casual takes, episode 86, hosted by your boy, Stephen Pabber, here to casually talk sports. This episode is brought to you by no one. Again, another short pod today, efficient, clean, get you in, get you out, so you don't have to listen to my horrible voice every single for like an hour. Talking about Jets, Browns, Thursday Night Football, and I also want to hint on the Russell Wilson situation in Denver because I didn't get to talk about it yesterday and I wanted to, but more details keep coming up as the day progresses. Let's first start with Jets Brown. The Jets lost last night, got crushed by Browns in Cleveland, Thursday Night Football, 37-20. And I'm not going to talk about the Jets because everyone in the world always talks about the Jets. Rodgers this, Salah that, this, that. The Jets story is so played out, so I want to focus on the Browns because I came on this pod about a couple months ago when they beat the Ravens, the Browns, and I said that the Browns were contenders if Watson was just serviceable. Being Houston Watson would have been a plus, but all he had to do was just be a game manager, serviceable. Because if you just take away the quarterback situation from the Browns and everything you hold against Deshaun Watson and just look at the roster for a second, there's a ton of talent everywhere. Got still an elite wide receiver in Mari Cooper. Got a tight end that's becoming one of the better ones in this league. Backs I like. Offensive lineman I love. And one of the best defenses in the sport. That's a talented roster. And a coach of the year coach, who's a great offensive head coach, which also I love offensive head coaches. But now Watson is gone, as we all know, and incoming fourth-string quarterback, 38-year-old Joe Flacco. And I think last night with his performance, 300 yards in the first half, I still think the Browns are a serious threat in the AFC, even with Joe Flacco. Now, I know most would say Flacco, given, the amount of case studies of backup quarterbacks we've seen this year, that he's just on an insanity run. But I'm going to have to disagree. I think Flacco, the way he's playing carefree, he's maximizing Stefanski's offense in ways that other Browns quarterbacks couldn't. With the play action, with his mechanics, the play fakes, the confidence. The Browns offense just looks better today than it did with the other quarterbacks. Joe Flacco has started 5 games for the Browns. The Browns have won 4 games out of 1. They're 4-1. This is Cal, what's up, bro? I see you in there. That just made my day. But back to what I was saying. Flacco has started 4 games for the Browns. The Browns are 4-1. Flacco's thrown for about over 1,600 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. That's pretty good. Doesn't sound like a backup to me. If you were to take away 38-year-old Joe Flacco and just blindly look at those stats, you'd be like, and that's a star-level quarterback production. The Browns are one of the better teams in the AFC. But since it's 38-year-old Joe Flacco, he's coming off the couch a month ago, we have a little disagreement. Now, what a lot of backup quarterbacks did this year is they came off that insanity run. But where I think he's also different from these backup quarterbacks is I don't think Flacco will fold to the pressure of a playoff run because he has nothing to lose. If he disappoints, they cut him at the end of the year. What is he going to do? Oh, I'm just going to go hang out with my kids and retire. Flacco doesn't care if he loses. He's playing for nothing. He's played about 15, 16, 17 years in this league. He's made his money, made $170 million. Also, Flacco, I would trust him in a playoff run, albeit it was about 12 years ago. He knows what it takes to push through a postseason against elite quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl. He won a Super Bowl MVP. So I think the Browns, with the way Joe Flacco's playing, can be serious contenders, especially in a weakened AFC. Because if I were to think they were contenders with a serviceable Deshaun Watson, they went 5-1 with Watson, who wasn't playing like a Pro Bowl level quarterback, just serviceable. Now we're close to Houston Watson. If I just look at these numbers from Flacco, which are better than what we got from Watson, he's already thrown for more yards this season than Watson by a couple hundred, more touchdowns, then I would have to say that they are. Now, of course, you can say, oh, Flacco's just going to come back down to life. We've seen it from Browning, Dobbs, DeVito, like all their backup quarterbacks this year. But I just think it's a different situation here. I think Flacco has nothing to play for like those other backup quarterbacks. And he's been there. Oh, well, Flacco's got to, if the Browns are the 5th seed, they got to go on the road and win 3 games in the AFC if they want to go to the Super Bowl. Again, Flacco's confident. He has nothing to lose. And, he's got to go to Baltimore. That's really the only team that I would fear is Baltimore, because with this Browns defense, the talent that I love, that I thought were contenders, even with a manageable Watson, receiver that I love in Amari Cooper, tight end Njoku, ball last night, and Flacco's unlocked him. Jerome Ford was awesome last night. Great interior offensive lineman. Myles Garrett leading one of the best defenses in the league. I think they can beat a Kansas City with no wide receivers. Josh Allen, sometimes that Bills offense, although I love the Bills, they kind of shoot themselves in the foot sometimes. And they lose games by themselves. No Justin Herbert, no Burrow. Pickett might be in the playoffs. Gardner Minshew might be in the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence is injured. So the only for real team would be Baltimore that I'm worried about. Baltimore's the best team in the league. Well, man, it's almost like the Browns quarterback used to play in that environment in Baltimore for about a decade. He knows how to play in Baltimore. Joe Flacco went on a Super Bowl run in Baltimore. Played his entire career in Baltimore. He knows that crowd. He knows that locker room. He knows that environment. He knows how to push through elite quarterbacks and win a Super Bowl MVP. I don't think he's going to be rattled by Baltimore, a home crowd, because he's done it before. He went into Peyton Manning's house and won a Super Bowl, albeit it was about 10 years ago. I think the way he's playing with the play action passes, his mechanics look really well for someone that old. Showing a little mobility. And yeah, he's got 8 interceptions. And yeah, he's a backup quarterback. But the way he's pushing the ball down the field and maximizing Stefanski's offense with the play action and unlocking Njoku's potential in ways that other Browns quarterbacks couldn't. If I were to come on here and say that the Browns were a viable team in the AFC with a serviceable Deshaun Watson, if that team could beat the 49ers with P.J. Walker, if Flacco's giving me almost double the touchdowns to interceptions, he's throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns on average, then I got to say this is a competitive team in the AFC. All right, let's talk about Russell Wilson. So this whole Russell Wilson stuff, I didn't get to talk about it yesterday, and I wanted to, but this whole Russell Wilson stuff's been weird, dude. I mean, it first started with him getting benched a couple days ago because of the contract. They didn't want to pay him that if he would have got hurt because he had a guaranteed clause if he didn't pass a physical, like $37 million. I always thought something was fishy. And then, Sean Payton said to the media this was about winning. Stidham gives us a better chance to get that next win in Week 17. And then Diana Rossini, NFL insider at The Athletic, said that the Broncos plan to cut ties with Russell Wilson this offseason, as we most expected. I think most people thought that this team with the Sean Payton dynamic, it just wasn't going to work out. So the question now today, everyone talking about in their favorite sports talk shows, how does this affect Russ's legacy? Does this no longer make him a Hall of Famer? Is this the worst trade in NFL history? I don't want to focus on that. I think it's more interesting to see, where's Russ going to go? What's that? Russ tweeted out, God's got me. Well, where's God going to put you? Because when I was door dashing last night, I door dash to make some money on the side. Because, my schedule's too busy. I'm back home for winter break. I can't just do work 8-hour shift at a Subway like I used to do in high school. DoorDash, make a little money. So when I was driving, sometimes it gets boring and you need to think to yourself and entertain yourself when you're driving out there for a while on these long drives, delivering McDonald's in the middle of nowhere. I was thinking to myself, where does Russ go? And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm struggling to find a single team that would want him next year. When I was driving, I was really looking at all the teams, and I was like, where is this man going to go? Because let's look at all 32 teams. And right away, you could knock out about a third of the league because I think they're either 100% confident they have their star guy or 90%. But if Russ is the other option, then hell no. Ravens, Dolphins, Chiefs, Bills, Jags, Bengals, Jets, Chargers, 49ers, Eagles, Lions, Cowboys, Rams, Cardinals, Texans. That was a lot to say. Let me catch my breath there. So then the next tier would be teams I think recently drafted a guy that they'll be looked to keep to developing as a starter. Colts, Titans, Packers, Panthers. Even when you look at this next tier of teams that aren't really sure they have the quarterback situation figured out, you would much rather run it back with them than have Russ. Bucks, Vikings, Saints, Seahawks. Now, a third of the team is left in need of a quarterback. Now, of course, this will all change based on their final draft placement and head coaching situation. But I think immediately out should be the Raiders and Giants that are in a landing spot. The Raiders and Giants should not be a landing spot because they already have huge money committed to guys. Teams like the Bears, Patriots, Commanders, I think they'll draft the best quarterbacks of the spring. I think you can already punch it in. You can already punch in that the Bears, Patriots, and probably the Commanders will draft the best quarterbacks in the spring, and they'll most likely pay right away. So Russ wouldn't go there. But the Falcons are interesting because they might be out of reach of the top quarterbacks. But if I'm Atlanta, with their young offensive talent, wouldn't you rather have a young QB to develop along with them? Even though I don't like him, I'd rather have a Justin Fields. So that leaves us with one team, that being the Steelers. who will be out of reach of a top quarterback in the draft. But I'm going to be honest. Depending on their coaching situation, they could just run it back with Pickett or still draft a young quarterback. So that means 0 teams would be interested in starting Russ week 1. Well, he could just be a backup. I'm going to be honest. I'm having a hard time seeing him as a backup. He's one of the most well-known names in the position. A celebrity wife, red carpets, won a Super Bowl Hall of Fame path. It's like the Cam Newton situation where, like, I just can't see that personality swallowing his pride and accepting as a backup to finish his career. Just think about that. If you were to ask me like a couple of years ago, where would, like 2019, Russell Wilson would have 0 market in about 3 years, I'd be like, sure. He's one of the better quarterbacks in this league. It's crazy to see Russell Wilson's fall off. But I'm serious. Just look at the 32 teams in the league. You can knock out a third of the league right away because they're 100% confident they have their guy of the future. Or they're just 100% confident that their starting quarterback is going to run it back next year. You wouldn't touch it. Then the next tier of teams, they have young quarterbacks. Why would they stunt their growth and start Russ? Next tier. Now, the next tier, I know it's a little controversial because Bucks with Baker Mayfield, Cousins, ACL, Achilles, Geno Smith. Well, take out Geno Smith. The Seahawks are fleeced them. They're glad they don't have Geno Smith. But Derek Carr with the Saints. But I think all those guys in their situations are better than Russ. Or like Derek Carr and the Saints, really, you're going to flip Derek Carr for Russell Wilson. The needle really moved to New Orleans. So, again, a third of the league is in need of a quarterback, I believe, next season. They're either going to look to trade for a guy or most likely draft a youngin. But the Raiders and Giants, with all their money committed to Jimmy G and Danny Dimes, it's going to be hard to get off those guys. And wouldn't you rather just go younger with the roster situation instead of going for Russ? Would Russ fit with Antonio Pierce? I don't really think so. And with Dable, offensive head coach, we've seen an offensive head coach in Sean Payton already move off of Russell Wilson. He knows his flaws. I think Dable would see it too. Bears, Patriots, and probably the Commanders. I think Commanders could also be a nice little landing spot for Russell Wilson, depending on where they end up landing on the quarterback situation. But it all comes down to Russell Wilson accepting as a backup. And like Cam Newton, even like a Carson Wentz, sometimes guys just personalities from being a former star and growing up and being one of the better quarterbacks of their life, any situation they've been in, NFL, college, high school, they've been one of their better quarterbacks around them. It's hard to accept being a backup. And what we saw with Cam Newton and Carson Wentz is it's going to be up to Russell Wilson when he's getting interviewed by teams or when people ask around the league, can Russ be a backup, that he has good PR and he accepts his pride and like, you know what? I'm a backup quarterback. This is where I'm at in my career. But I don't know if teams really have to be sold on Russ accepting as a backup. Because what if their young quarterback, what if their starter quarterback has a rough spot? Then you're going to hear the chants, we want Russ, put Russ in. No one wants that. Everyone knows Russ. So for the third of the teams that already have their guy, they're not taking Russ as a backup. Why would they? Celebrity quarterback backing up their already star. Really, the only teams that would accept them as a backup are teams like as a bridge, Commanders, Bears, Patriots. But I don't know. I think of the Bears, I'm starting Caleb Williams right away. Maybe the Falcons, maybe the Steelers. There's just not that much market for Russ. Now, Russ isn't a bad quarterback. I don't think he's as good as people give him credit to. I know a lot of people look at his stats. Oh, look at the touchdown interception ratio. It's not as good as you think. He's not. Stats say he's playing like a top 7 quarterback. He's playing like a top 20, 25 quarterback. And he's not going to get any better, too. That's also the thing. Russ just isn't going to get any better. So next year, 36-year-old Russ, who isn't going to, if you think he's declining today, it's going to be much worse next year. None of these teams are going to look to start him. And that's crazy to think. When I'm really looking at all these teams in the league, who's starting Russ? Where would he land? And I think Russ most likely will eventually find a spot on a team. But I don't think it's going to be right away. I don't think it's as soon as free agency opens. I think it's going to be last minute, maybe like a mid-season acquisition when a team desperately needs a quarterback. And it's really just up to Russ accepting I'm most likely to be a backup. And if I want to stay in this league at 36 by next year, I'm going to have to be a backup quarterback. But I appreciate you guys listening to Some Casual Takes episode 86. I love these short pods. I come in and out, get my takes out, and you guys probably don't want to spend like an hour listening to my dreadful voice. Again, thank you all for listening, spending time out of your day to listen to your boy talk some ball. Follow all my social medias to update on all things related to the show. Shout out to the Lakers for not losing to the Hornets. Oh my God, that game, dude. If we would have lost, Darvin Ham's lucky. I was about ready to come on here after we lost on Christmas Day. If we lost the Hornets, I would have came on here the show and bashed Darvin Ham. But Sub Casual takes the handles for everything. Until next show, I'll see you guys. Yo, shout out to Cal, bro. Shout out to Cal for being the viewer in the show. But till next